securely, and there's a license apparently for every remote portal coming out off the mainframe of a company. Now, that would cost the company to set all that up in all those individual homes. So you can't see them wanting to just abandon that, can you?
Oh, no, that's right. Particularly if they've made an investment as such, they'll want to get a return on that investment. And look, I think it'll also open up some interesting cases for the human resources departments out there. They'll have their work cut out for them, because there'll be a lot of people saying, well, all right, look, I'll cut you a deal. If my commute's 1 hour in and 1 hour out, but I can work from home, I tell you what, how about I give you, that is the company, another hour of my day, and that second travel hour that I won't require, I'll bank that as time in the garden or time with my husband or the kids or whatever happens to be the case. That is, you let me work from home and it's a win-win for everyone. Now, I think half sensible companies would jump at that.
Oh, Michael, I agree with you. I think there will be a lot more negotiating going on. I know the government is talking about looking at flexibility in the IR system. I think that's going to happen automatically because of what we've just spoken about, the experience of people working from home. There's going to be one-on-one conversations between employer and employee, and I think you're going to find a lot of things are worked out that way. And think, Michael, of all the toilet paper that won't have to go into all those offices. All those pallets of toilet paper that will just... And as someone said, actually, the logistics of using office towers at the moment, if we've still got a social distance, trying to go up and down lifts with only a certain number of people.
Possible.
I mean,
possible.
Really.
And, of course, if public transport's nowhere near full capacity because every third or second seat's blocked, and, I mean, all of that will just add to road congestion. So I think we're still a long way off from having CBDs really buzzing, and I just think, there will be a lot of people and businesses, there are already some businesses saying, you know what, let's just keep this going. And we'll pay the lease till the end of next year or whenever they've got the lease on their office building, and then they'll just say, well, that's it. No, we don't need it.
No. Michael, just before I go, I quickly want to talk about sport. And there's something that's amazed me and disappointed me is you've got the likes of Cricket Australia, and certainly there's been the NRL, and they're not alone. And the AFL not too badly off, because they've always been pretty much flushed with cash anyway, and they always have very good backers. But particularly with Cricket Australia saying, this is absolutely dreadful state with our financial arrangements, and of course we know the NRL was the same. And then you've got small grassroots clubs and associations wondering if they're going to survive this. And I'm scratching my head asking myself, now, with the small clubs and associations, their overheads probably are their grounds, any facilities that they have, maintaining those. And most of them, you would think, are council property. So surely the council would have given them some leeway, some leniency on rates, and obviously water charges, and water is not probably being used if the grounds are not being used. But I'm also wondering too, Michael, is it that they're concerned that when we do get back to full community grassroots sport, that people that would have had a job previously, mums and dads, and they may have lost their job altogether or got diminished income, that they're not going to be able to afford to send their kids to participate in sport because of the fees, and they're not cheap these days.
No, they're not. Now, that's the problem.
This is where it comes back to the point of your national and your state sporting bodies. I am appalled that they're crying poor. Now, it's at this time they should have enough cash reserves to help these smaller clubs and associations out, because without the grassroots, there will be no elite sport in years to come. That's our breeding ground. And therefore, for them at the elite level to cry poor, they're not looking what's happening down the line. And if we're finding that mums and dads are going to have problems paying for their kids to participate because they've lost their job, then it's up to, I suppose government can play a role here, but certainly it's up to those national bodies, particularly, more so than your state, but your national bodies and your larger sports to have had a cash reserve to say, right, we are going to help out the grassroots.
Yes, I quite agree.
Pay lip service to it, but I get really, really angry with this. I really do, because I see the divide between the elite and grassroots getting wider and wider and wider.
And you wonder where they spent all the money. I mean, that's the other thing.
Yes.
I know they're not-for-profits, a lot of them, and the rest of it, but you think, well, I mean, they've got all of these, as you say, all of these sponsorship deals. They've had golden years, big ticket sales, and they must have just been spending it as if it were always going to come in. I mean, it's the same mistake governments make, isn't it, when they sort of budget for things, assuming that the iron ore price will always be above $80 a tonne and the unemployment rate will always be about 4%, and then, of course, things start to go a bit awry, and they've got all these long-term financial commitments which they can't meet. There's no money set aside for the rainy day.
Michael, classic case was the Brisbane Lions during their 3 back-to-back premierships, so about 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, I think it was right, and then they runners-up in 2004. They were seeing record membership numbers. Obviously, there were huge sponsorship deals being done because of their success. Unfortunately, there was very little money put away for a rainy day. Now, when that success fell away, they didn't have any cash reserve to then recruit well in the draft. And this is the problem. They didn't have enough money to recruit a good coach because they were spending it like it was going out of fashion.
Yep.
And I'm suspecting that if you stripped away a lot of the what we see at the elite level, at a national level in particular, then we would find the books of a lot of these organisations in a lot of trouble. And it's not till things start to go awry, as I said, do we start to see this revealed. And perhaps they've got to pare back on some of the fringe benefits, that whether it's the management or whether it's the players. But my focus has always been the grassroots. If you don't keep the foundation underneath that, then you can forget having an elite level. And if they don't understand that, then they've got no business running their sport.
It's very well said. Good on you, Debbie. Always great to hear from you. It's 23-2. We'll be back after this.
Is it time to knock down your old house and build a new home or duplex? Then talk to us. I'm Steve Mullisek, Managing Director of Champion Homes. We specialise in knockdown and rebuilds. Our standard of construction is simply the best. And for a limited time, we offer a bonus. We will knock down your old house for only $5,000. T's and C's apply. Visit us online or call 1300 136 200 for an obligation-free discussion. Champion Homes. We are simply the best.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
You can't always be there for your elderly mum or dad when they're feeling unwell or have a fall. But there is another option. With a MePax personal alarm, you have peace of mind that your loved one has guaranteed help, day or night. They'll be able to speak to a real person at the MePax Response Centre, based in Australia within 2 minutes. Anytime, day or night, at home or out and about, you're safer with MePax. Find out more at mepax.com.au.
Only Simplicity Funerals offers the Simplicity Guarantee. It's our promise to you that we'll always better the lowest quote around. And if you're not completely satisfied with our service, we'll refund our fees. It's that simple. For a funeral that's simply respectful and simply affordable, call us anytime on 1300 556 222 or visit simplicityfunerals.com.au. Terms and conditions apply.
Your Ford dealer is open and ready to help you get standout deals with high-vis value. Like the incredibly capable Everest Trend rear-wheel drive 3.2-litre auto for only $54,990 drive away. Plus, for your peace of mind, every Everest comes with up to 5 years free scheduled servicing. So hurry into your participating Ford dealer before June 30 for high-vis value. Recommended price, T's and C's apply. See Ford.com.au for details.
Why do archaeologists spend so much time digging up old pots? Don't they know about Flower Power? We have Sydney's largest range of indoor and outdoor pots. Actually, right now, there are so many we're having a massive clearance, with pots 20 to 50% off. Gorgeous indoor pots in every shape and colour, and outdoor pots so elegant, archaeologists in 1,000 years will marvel at them. But hurry, 20 to 50% off all full-price pots can only last until Wednesday. Flower Power, the garden pot people.
a starter rod for the kids, or the most advanced reel on the market, Shimano has fishing gear, accessories and apparel to suit every angler and budget. For your nearest dealer, see shimanofish.com.au. Shimano, proud partner of Widewater Sports.
You're listening to Australia Overnight on 2GB 873.
20 to 2, there's a story in the Telegraph today saying that the Greens have been condemned as certifiably mad, yet again, after demanding that Australian police forces be defunded. This is during a debate recognising the sacrifices made by officers. 8 Greens senators yesterday, according to Claire Armstrong, voted against a motion backed by both Labor and the Coalition, condemning calls to redirect funding from police. The Green Senator Nick McKim said defunding police was quote-unquote justice reinvestment. And whatever that means. He went on to say the call to defund the police is actually a call for increased funding into social supports. Things like housing, things like education, things like childcare, things that are genuine public goods. Well, the National Senator Matt Canavan was one of 4 government members to co-sponsor the motion, which also acknowledged the hard work, dedication and sacrifice of the more than 80,000 state and federal police officers. He said in the book of Crazy Greens ideas, this one of defunding the police has to rank in the top 5. Yeah, I don't know what the other 4 are, but geez, they'd have to be pretty loopy to be up there with that. I mean, imagine calling for defunding of the police. I mean, this is what some of these crazies in America are doing. You know, and they're all hot under the collar under everything what's going on. But you know, the moment they need some help, they'll be calling 911 over there. They won't be calling the community constabulary or whatever their new ideas are. And you know, you just have to shake your head and think, you know, how on earth can these people seriously consider that it would be a good idea to pull money out of policing? Crazy. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good, mate. Thanks.
I thought I'd give you a heads up, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
On a lighter note, tomorrow there will be a protest right across Australia in all capital cities, and it will be from the humble pigeon that you see in the street. I believe that the pigeons are going to fly past the universities and drop little messages on the protesters to let them know that they're not satisfied, they're very dissatisfied with the fact that they're damaging their statues. they've got nowhere to roost.
That's a very good point.
And I think you can probably sum these protesters up. They're like Columbus, mate. They didn't know where they were going when they went. They didn't know where they were when they got there, and they sure as hell didn't know where they'd been when they got back home.
No, well, that's right. And, of course, the point is you go to Barcelona and there's that famous statue of Columbus, and he's not even pointing west. He's pointing somewhere else. Not even the statue knows where he was.
That's right. But on a more lighter note, Mike, next Saturday week was the start of the racing pigeon season again.
Okay.
The fellas have stood down for a number of weeks because of the virus, and now they've got the all clear to go ahead with it, so it will start off next week, and you'll have about 300 pigeon flyers or 350 pigeon flyers in Sydney taking their birds on Friday night to enter them in a race. And the first race this year is a little country town called Capitry, northwest of Sydney, about 112 miles back to Sydney. And they'll commence from there, and they'll have probably 3 races from there over a period of 3 weeks, and then they'll venture down the line at jumping 100 miles each couple of weeks to other places until they get out to these, say, 800 or 900 kilometres.
Gee whiz.
So the pigeon season's back on again, mate.
They're covering some ground.
And they are covering some ground, mate. And as that lady that was just speaking to you about sport, there's lots of vacant spaces, mate, for any young people that want to get into pigeon racing. It's a tremendous hobby for a kid in a family. You can do it all in your own backyard.
Oh, yeah, well, tell me then, for those that might be interested or listening, I mean, how easy is it to get into all of this? What do you got to have? What's the kit? I mean, you obviously got to have some pigeons.
Well, mate, any young kid in any suburb in Sydney or Wollongong or any of the capital cities, and a lot of the country towns too have got clubs. They've only got to venture down to their local pigeon club and see the blokes in there, and then blokes wouldn't be more than happy, mate, to start them off with a few pigeons, and tell them what to do and how to do it, how to breed them, how to train them, and how to race them. They'd be happy to see them come through the door.
All right.
Unfortunately, it's a dying sport at the moment, but it's a lot of old blokes are in it, and well, not so old. I don't consider myself to be an old bloke yet, but it's a sport that needs pushing along a bit, you know.
Well, it's probably one that a lot of people don't think of straight away when they think sport or hobby.
It's not. People think of pigeons and they think of the ones that I've just joked about the ones out in the street and the statues. It's a totally different concept, mate, between them and the racing pigeon. You're talking about thoroughbreds that are bred like thoroughbred racehorses. And some can cost quite a bit of money if you wanted to go out and buy big money and pay for some birds, you know. But most pigeon clubs, you'll always have flyers there that'll help kids out with a few pigeons and start them on the road to success, you know.
All right.
And it's a great thing for a family, mate, because it can be done all in your own backyard with your mum and dad and brothers and sisters or whatever. The whole family can take part in it. And it's good for kids, mate, because everything comes into it. The breeding of them, to see them hatching out the eggs and the training of them. And it's a real good sport for a kid.
Well, and it gets them outside.
Sorry?
It gets them outside, gets them a bit of fresh air.
Yeah, it gets them out and get out in the open and travelling around with their birds and you know. Everything's done. I had many a great year, mate, with my dad, who's passed away since, but we had a terrific camaraderie between the two of us with the pigeons, you know. And my dad couldn't tell you a black one from a white one, but he was happy to do what I was doing and help me out, you know, and it was a great family sport.
Absolutely. All right, so I suppose people can just Google it up and they'll find where their local clubs are. And
produce stores are and all that, you know. These blokes will direct you to all them things, you know. I used to, a few years ago, I used to bring a lot of produce down from the bush for the pigeon flyers, direct from the farm, you know, to save a bit of cost. Mm-hmm. And bring it straight from the farm to the city. It quite reduced prices to what they'd have to pay in, say, a produce store or a food store, you know.
And what if the family already owns cats, for example? I mean, does that go all right?
Well, I have cats here, Mike, and they never worried them. You know, I suppose the cat's one of their natural enemies. Their natural enemy is the hawk. Not much you can do about that because he's out and about all the time, the old hawk.
That's right.
But cats will settle down to them. It's like anything else. You can train anything to do what you want it to do. I had a cat here, mate, used to go into the pigeon loft and sit with one of my pigeons when she was sitting on the eggs. She'd wrap herself around the pigeon while the pigeon was actually sitting on the eggs, hatching the eggs out.
Isn't that gorgeous?
It's unbelievable. First time I seen it, I nearly died. I thought she's ate everything, but no, the mother instinct come out in her.
Yeah.
And she would sit with that pigeon, while that pigeon was sitting on eggs and hatch the young ones out. And when the pigeon got up for a day to go and get a drink or a feed, the cat would take over and keep the birds warm.
Yeah, good tag.
It's unbelievable.
Tag team.
Absolutely unbelievable.
That's beautiful. Well, look, I mean, nature can surprise, can't it? That's the thing.
My oath, it can surprise you, you know.
And you learn.
There's nothing better than watching nature either. It's a great education, watching nature.
It's the best education.
Doesn't matter, no matter what it is in the natural world. You watch the natural world and you can learn a lot from it.
You bet. Well, gee, it's good to talk to you, Steve. Thank you, mate. And hopefully a couple of people have heard this and they'll get involved and get in touch with their clubs and get a bit of young blood into the sport.
Yeah, it's the best thing that could happen to it.
I reckon you're right.
And on another note, mate, it's a very sorrowful day, mate. We've lost one of our great singers in Ireland, mate.
Well, we sure have, but one of the greats. But I tell you what, Steve, I've got one here that I think you'll love, one of the best. This was one of those big patriotic songs. There'll be a few people waving their Union Jacks with this one. So thank you for the call and enjoy this.
I give you a toast, ladies and gentlemen. I give you a toast. Ladies and gentlemen, may this fair land we love so well in dignity and freedom dwell. The worlds may change and go awry, while there is still one voice to cry. There'll always be an England, while there's a country cottage small beside a field of grain. There'll always be an England while there's a busy street. Wherever there's a turning wheel, a million marching feet. Red, white and blue, what does it mean to you? Surely you're proud, shout it aloud, Britain's away. The Empire too, we can depend on you. Freedom remains, these are the chains nothing can break. There'll always be an England, and England shall be free. If England means as much to you as England means to me.
Weekday afternoons on 2GB. Join Mark Levy for Drive.
The Greens have voted against a motion condemning calls to defund essential police forces in Australia. The Greens should be renamed the Professional Party of Professional Protesters because that's all they're good for. That is the reason we have some sections of the community that feel that they can raise their hand and injure and harm the hard-working men and women of the police force.
Drive with Mark Levy. Weekday afternoons from 3, 2GB 873.
My name is Lisa O'Brien, CEO of the Smith family. The COVID-19 outbreak is a huge challenge for all of us, especially the most vulnerable. In Australia today, 1 in 6 children are living in poverty. This crisis will hit them hard. Not all children can afford textbooks, stationery, a computer and internet access, so critical for ongoing learning. With your help, we'll make the world of difference.
Donate now. Search the Smith family.
It's Brett Steen from Jacaranda Financial Planning, here to sort out your super and retirement. Heard on the radio for years, we provide trusted, clear superannuation and retirement advice.
Book now for Brett's free super and retirement planning seminar, 6 p.m. Tuesday, June 23 at the Radisson Blu Hotel in the city.
Learn tips and traps and how to make your account-based pension and super work. Book with Jacaranda on 9240 2610. That's Jacaranda Financial Planning, 9240 2610.
You can't always be there for your elderly mum or dad when they're feeling unwell or have a fall. But there is another option. With a MePax personal alarm, you have peace of mind that your loved one has guaranteed help, day or night. They'll be able to speak to a real person at the MePax Response Centre, based in Australia within 2 minutes. Anytime, day or night, at home or out and about. You're safer with MePax. Find out more at mepax.com.au.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
Only Simplicity Funerals offers the Simplicity Guarantee. It's our promise to you that we'll always better the lowest quote around. And if you're not completely satisfied with our service, we'll refund our fees. It's that simple. For a funeral that's simply respectful and simply affordable, call us anytime on 1300 556 222 or visit simplicityfunerals.com.au. Terms and conditions apply.
Business tips. Thanks to Reckon Payroll Solutions.
Did you know you can process JobKeeper payments in just a few taps and manage pay runs for unlimited staff on the go? It's easy. Visit reckon.com to find out more.
You're listening to Australia Overnight on 2GB 873.
5.5 to 2. Colin, good morning.
Good morning, yeah. I was looking at that road closure at Stanwell Tops up there.
Were you? Again?
And, yeah, from the other night when I was speaking on the radio.
Yes.
And I looked at the mathematics of the GPS system directing the two nurses up to Stanwell Tops, right. And if it was a self-drive car, it'd be standing up there, it'd be parked up there waiting for the truck to move away because it's a gate across the roadway.
Yes, I remember you mentioned that gate. The gate's what's caused all the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because if you're coming from Sydney, you've got to take the coast road, right? But if you're coming from... What was the other...
No, if you're coming from Sydney, you've got to go down to Bulleye Pass and down the hill and come back up the coast road. And you get to see the scenic view twice because on the bridge because you can't get up to Stanwell Park, Stanwell Tops. You only go to Stanwell Park. If you're coming from Appin, you go down Bulleye Pass and turn left and go along the coast road to Stanwell Park, cross the Seaview Bridge and you turn around and go back out again to go to Appin. The same from Wollongong if you come along the coast road. But if you go, what happened was the girls got in the car at Port Kembla Hospital. One was a spinal nurse and the other one was an occupational therapist. Yes. They had to come and see me for some business. And they punched in how to get from Port Kembla to Stanwell Park. And it took them up onto the freeway. And when they got up to Stanwell Tops, it's all closed off. And they rang me and said, how do we get down to you? We're up here at Stanwell Tops, all fenced off.
Well, you had the answer for them, and that's the main thing. Good on you, Cole. I've got to go to the news, mate. Thanks for the call. After the news, we'll look at the history of Napoleon.
Is your judgment clouded when it comes to the game of relationships? Do you need that old world wisdom with a new perspective? Find out how to unmask the 8 players and bring yourself to romantic recovery. Get the best advice from co-writers Waterford Adams, who have extensive careers in health and education. This easy-to-read book is your road to recovery. Romantic Recovery by Waterford Adams. Order your copy today from amazon.com.au.
So, Dad, Mum said you got onto internet banking.
Oh, yes. Why?
Well, you swore you'd never.
No, I didn't. Never said never.
You did. You said it's not safe, takes too long, it's all too hard.
No, I didn't.
You did. What changed?
Well, it's very safe, very easy. Fast.
I've been saying that for 15 years.
Well, now you can stop.
NAB Internet Banking. Register in under 5 minutes. It's safe, fast and easy. NAB. More than money. Internet banking terms and conditions apply. See nab.com.au.
2020 has been hard for everyone, but for our Aussie farmers, uncertainty has piggybacked fire, flood, drought and COVID. True to their tenacious spirit, our farmers have continued to work hard to put food on our tables, despite everything that's been thrown at them. Now we're asking for your support to give our Aussie farmers a hand. Help Rural Aid support our farmers and rural communities. Make a tax-deductible donation today at ruralaid.org.au.
Are you living with mild joint or nerve pain? Caruso's Pain Analgesic for Joints to the rescue. Caruso's Pain Analgesic for Joints is a new alternative formula for the relief of mild nerve and joint pain, joint stiffness, joint inflammation and joint soreness. Caruso's Pain Analgesic for Joints comes with a money-back guarantee. New Caruso's Pain Analgesic for Joints is available from selected pharmacies and health stores. Always read the label. Follow the directions for use. If symptoms persist, worsen or change unexpectedly, talk to your health professional.
For 24 years, Australian Fire Supplies has been the one-stop shop for fire protection. Australian Fire Supplies can fabricate and supply the fire piping system your project or development needs. Sprinkler, hydrant or gas system. Flames can destroy everything in minutes, but with Australian Fire Supplies, the fire that starts at 2 in the morning can be automatically extinguished in minutes. They promise service that's on time, all the time, guaranteed. Google Australian Fire Supplies.
a starter rod for the kids, or the most advanced reel on the market, Shimano has fishing gear, accessories and apparel to suit every angler and budget. For your nearest dealer, see shimanofish.com.au. Shimano, proud partner of Widewater Sports.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
2GB. People you know, news you can trust. Sydney's number one, 2GB. Join Ben Fordham for breakfast, 5:30 weekdays on 2GB. Sydney's 2GB 873.
This bulletin, US immigrants to stay, Queensland shooting investigation and death of British icon. It's 2 o'clock. Good morning, I'm Lauren Howarth. The US Supreme Court says President Trump wrongly moved to quickly end the Dreamers program for people brought to the country illegally as children. Stephen Portnoy has more.
The 5-4 holding in the DACA case offers the latest example of Chief Justice John Roberts acting as a swing vote. The George W. Bush appointee famously sided with the Liberals in 2012 to uphold the Obamacare law. The DACA ruling comes just days after a 6-3 opinion authored by Trump appointee Neil Gorsuch that prohibits employment discrimination against LGBT workers.
There's been a much smaller than expected increase in the New South Wales unemployment rate. While the national jobless rate has jumped to 7.1%, the state's figure has only increased by 1% rather to 6.4%. But Treasurer Dominic Perrottet says he expects the rate to keep increasing.
Better than expected result in the circumstances, but when you look right across the board, this is just the start of the challenge that's in front of us.
Queensland's unemployment rate has risen to 7.9%, the highest since February 2002. Around 80% of those who lost their job last month were men. Another 1.5 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits for the first time last week, although it is the 11th consecutive week which the number has declined. Police have charged 3 people after seizing illicit drugs and more than $200,000 cash in Sydney's south. 2 men and a woman are spending the night behind bars to appear in court later today. 2 other men are already before the courts. A man's been injured during a shooting incident in Brisbane's southwest. Jocelyn Evans reports.
A man and a woman arrived at a Beatty Road car yard in Archerfield before a 61-year-old man was hit on the back of the head with a firearm. A short time later, shots were fired into nearby vehicles. A late-model silver Commodore and another late-model black sedan were later seen driving in the area. Police are urging anyone with information or dashcam footage to come forward. In Brisbane, Jocelyn Evans, 9 News.
A 12-year-old boy has been hit by a car in Sydney's southwest. The child has been struck at Canley Heights. He's suffered superficial cuts and injuries to his leg, elbow and back. Dame Vera Lynn, known as the Force's sweetheart, has passed away at the age of 103. The British singer was enormously popular during the Second World War. Also making news, the most senior health official to appear before the Ruby Princess inquiry admits his department's own protocols for judging the virus risk for ships was out of date, and a $4 million research boost is promising to change the lives of our youngest stroke survivors. Taking a look at finance now, and the Dow Jones is down 67 points, while the Nasdaq is up 19 points, and one Australian dollar is buying 68.49 US cents.
Sport for Australian fire supplies and fabrication. On time, all the time service guaranteed.
Brisbane's coach concedes he may be forced to make changes after his side slumped to a 4th straight loss. The Broncos suffered a 27-6 defeat to the Newcastle Knights. Anthony Seibold says he might have to make some tough calls in the coming week.
I did it last year. I'll have to have a look at it again. The challenge, though, is that the guys sitting in behind our 17 at the moment don't get to play footy on the weekend, so it's you're taking a bit of a punt there.
Round 6 of the NRL continues tonight when the South Sydney Rabbitohs take on the New Zealand Warriors before the Penrith Panthers meet the Melbourne Storm. Fox Sports has signalled a future without the A-League competition. Some club owners are lobbying for the season to be cancelled if the games aren't broadcast. In the AFL, defending Premier Richmond has been thumped by Hawthorn at the MCG, and Aussie rugby officials are rejecting speculation about a merger between the Brumbies and the Rebels. It's 2:30. That's the latest news and sport.
Weather. Join Ben Fordham for breakfast, 5:30 weekdays on 2GB.
Partly cloudy, light winds heading into a partly cloudy day. Tops of 19 degrees in the city, 20 in the west. Right now in town it's 10 degrees, humidity 84%, 7 degrees at Bankstown and Gosford, 5 Lucas Heights. I'm Lauren Howarth. There'll be more news at 3 on your news leader, 2GB 873.
Now it's back to Australia Overnight with Michael McLaren.
Well, here's one for the history buffs. Yesterday marked the 205th anniversary of one of, I think, the most significant battles in European history, the Battle of Waterloo. It was fought on June the 18th in 1815, and it saw the French army under the command of Napoleon Bonaparte defeated by a British-led coalition that was led under the command of the Duke of Wellington, of course, one of the great figures of English military history. Also on Wellington's side, it has to be said, was a Prussian army under the command of Field Marshal von Blücher. Now, Waterloo and the defeat of Napoleon marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars, and arguably it marked the end of Napoleon's influence across Europe. But when you look at the life and the times of this extraordinary figure from history, Napoleon Bonaparte, it is simply impossible to overstate the significance of the legacy that he leaves behind. And that's what I wanted to look at this morning. Professor Michael Browers is from Oxford University. He's Professor of Western European History, and he's also the author of Napoleon, Soldier of Destiny. Who better to talk to about Napoleon than Professor Browers? And as I say, he joins us on the line from Oxford. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Let's start at the end, as it were. Waterloo, of course, there were many European coalitions against Napoleon and Napoleonic France leading up to Waterloo, but this was the 7th coalition. They finally worked out how to knock him off.
Well, in fact, they already had. I think the 6th coalition was the crunch. It did it work when he's defeated in 1814 and he's forced to abdicate and go to Elba. And what you're looking at with Waterloo in the 100 Days, I think, isn't really the end of something. It's the beginning. Napoleon's control over Europe, his power, his military sway was gone by then. And to be perfectly honest with you, there was no way he could have won in the 100 Days, even if he'd won at Waterloo. It's often forgotten that there was an army of nearly 250,000 Russian soldiers stationed in eastern France, and they'd have been mobilized if things had gone wrong at Waterloo, as of course they very nearly did. What you're looking at with the 100 Days and with Waterloo is the beginning of something. It's the beginning of the Napoleonic legend. The more I work on this, and I've spent my whole career really working on this kind of thing, the more extraordinary that life and that career are. There is no parallel in previous history for anybody like Napoleon. They didn't know what to do with him once they'd beaten him, so they put him on Elba. And even after Waterloo, they put him on St. Helena. They just don't know how to handle this guy who's come out of nowhere, who's done all this. And the 100 Days is the beginning of something new. It's the last gamble he couldn't possibly win, but it's extraordinary. The chance he took, the audacity, the being defeated in such a titanic battle that he very nearly won on the day, all that, and then the being sent into exile, all that adds to the mystique.
It sure does. Let's go back to the start. He was born in Corsica. It was a relatively modest Italian family, sort of minor nobility, I think, if I'm right in saying.
They were phony nobles. It was a good book.
Phony nobles. As most are.
They were lawyers. They were lawyers.
Oh, well, there you go. They're all phony nobles. And he was serving as an artillery officer in the French army. And then, of course, along comes the French Revolution.
Yeah, and of course that opens the door to a lot of rising talent. You've got to remember Napoleon was the first among equals. You know, he was the most gifted general of a very gifted generation, almost all of whom saw their careers accelerated by the Revolutionary Wars. You know, a lot of royalist officers had defected, and a lot of people like Napoleon had to be rapidly promoted from the middle ranks or even the lower ranks of the officer corps, to positions of importance. It's a dangerous one. His first big break is at the Siege of Toulon. Toulon was a city that rebelled against the French Revolution. It's the biggest military port on the Mediterranean coast of France. It's a big naval base. It went over to the enemy. The Royal Marines are on there. The Mediterranean fleet's in. Napoleon commands the artillery batteries that reduced the British fleet to rubble. That's his first big step. But it nearly cost him his life, because the revolutionary government that put him in charge of carrying that out is overthrown within a matter of months. And Napoleon is actually listed for execution.
And so then we go to about the time he's about 26. He then really begins his first military campaign against the Austrians and the Italian monarchs, the ones that were aligned with the Habsburg Empire at the time. And his talent is shown, isn't it? He wins almost every battle, conquers the Italian peninsula in about a year, and he also you start to see the diplomatic ability of Napoleon, because he starts establishing these sister republics, doesn't he?
Yes. Yeah, this is what they really should have been paying attention to in Paris, and they didn't. It's something that particularly interests me. He obviously has this whirlwind series of victories over the Austrians and their Italian allies. As you say, he's taken over the whole peninsula. But unlike a lot of other revolutionary generals who had scored big victories in Switzerland, big victories in Germany and Belgium, Napoleon knows what to do. He starts setting up, as you said, what they call the sister republics, modeled on revolutionary France. The one in particular that emerges is called the Cisalpine Republic. It's the Roman name for the region. And it centers basically on Milan and Bologna. But what they don't see in Paris is it's not just, they see he's running his own diplomacy and they stop that. And they see he's sending a lot of money, a lot of art treasures back. What they don't see is that he has set these republics up, particularly this Cisalpine Republic, and he's done it. I don't know where he gets his political ideas from, but he's doing slightly different things to the government in France. It looks French, it's slightly different, and he's the puppet master, and that's what makes him the real danger to the government, but they don't see it.
Okay, so then 1798, he goes to Egypt, and of course that's one of the most famous campaigns. And then the danger that you spoke of returns to France. He orchestrates a coup in November of 1799, fresh off the back of the Egyptian campaign, and he becomes the first consul of the Republic, doesn't he?
Yeah. Now, that coup is an interesting one, Brumaire, because that was the name of the French Revolutionary month, the month of fog, most appropriate. He doesn't actually engineer the coup. The coup is begun by a group of politicians within the government, within the Directory, who believe the country needs a stronger executive and a better steer because the war is going very badly. One of the things that happened with Napoleon in Egypt is that campaign was a disaster for him. Complete disaster. If he'd lived in the age of instant news, there wouldn't have been a Napoleon. But he beat the bad news home. He's basically lost his army in Egypt. He's the only one of the leading generals who isn't in command of his own army. And therefore, he cannot overthrow whatever government emerges with his own troops. He has to persuade the military governor of Paris to back the coup. He's going to be brought in as a team of 3 in the government. So he carries the coup out, but he's by no means in complete control at the beginning. But once they're in power, that's where his political nous, and his vision as a statesman come into play. He knows how to. This is what really wins him the day, not the military side. He knows how to work that committee. He sees them arguing among themselves. He knows exactly how to turn the tables on them to make himself first consul when he was probably supposed to have been the third consul. Knows how to take it by the scruff of the neck, knows how to maneuver his rivals out of office and bring in his own men.
And of course, 5 years on, he's the emperor.
Indeed.
All right, now, we'll take a quick break at this point. Now, when we come back, where does it all go wrong for Napoleon and his defeat at Waterloo?
Jeff Kinghorn, the father of Daniel Kinghorn, one of the two officers attacked on the central coast of New South Wales.
It was very harrowing to hear the screams. You worry about them every day.
Jeff, what would you like to say to the New South Wales Premier on the issue of mandatory minimum sentences?
You nearly tear the radio out of the dashboard and throw it out the window when they say they're going to review things. I mean, why can't it be done?
Ben Fordham Live.
Premier, if you want to show your support for cops, this is your time.
Weekdays from 5:30. 2GB.
Sleep. Are you having trouble with yours? I have exactly what you need. Introducing the original next generation Sleeping Duck mattress. It's the luxury mattress that was the highest scoring mattress in a 2018 choice test. Precision designed by aerospace engineers. Trial it for 100 nights or your money back. Order yours now at sleepingduck.com.
Your local club is now open and ready to welcome you back. We've put important measures in place to ensure you remain safe. Hand sanitizer is available throughout our venues and high-touch areas will be regularly cleaned. We've also got social distancing ambassadors to help you move around safely. You'll always be made to feel welcome at your local club. You can find your local club on Facebook or Instagram.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
A starter rod for the kids, or the most advanced reel on the market, Shimano has fishing gear, accessories, and apparel to suit every angler and budget. For your nearest dealer, see shimanofish.com.au. Shimano, proud partner of Widewater Sports.
Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass.
Don't miss the Palmer's Glass mid-year shower screen sale on now. Great deals on quality frameless shower screens. You can't go past palmersglass.com.au.
Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass.
Why do archaeologists spend so much time digging up old pots? Don't they know about Flower Power? We have Sydney's largest range of indoor and outdoor pots. Actually, right now, there are so many we're having a massive clearance, with pots 20 to 50% off. Gorgeous indoor pots in every shape and colour, and outdoor pots so elegant, archaeologists in 1,000 years will marvel at them. But hurry, 20 to 50% off all full-price pots can only last until Wednesday. Flower Power, the garden pot people.
You're listening to Australia Overnight on 2GB 873.
Okay, good having you with us. Now, look, we're speaking with Professor Michael Browers, Professor of Western European History at Oxford University and the author of Napoleon, Soldier of Destiny, because yesterday marked the 205th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo. Now, so far we've looked at the rise of Napoleon, considered, of course, by many the greatest general in modern history. But as with all things, the higher you rise, the further you have to fall. And from 1808, Napoleon's fortunes did take a turn for the worst. And I suppose, a lot of people say, oh, Russia. Everyone says, oh, Hitler and Napoleon made a mistake with Russia, which they do. But probably the first turning point for Napoleon, and you'll probably tell me I'm wrong here, there's others, but I suppose one of the first was the occupation of Spain. He puts his brother, Joseph Bonaparte, on the throne in Spain, and the Iberian Peninsula says that's a step too far, and then the revolt begins.
Well, yes and no.
I knew you'd pick me up.
Oh, I'm an historian. I'm a professional historian. That's my job. But we're a bit like lawyers like that. But when he goes into Spain, it is a step too far. It's the biggest single piece of territory he's tried to seize at one go. He underestimates what it's going to be like. But I wouldn't say it's the beginning of the end. It's a big drain on his resources. He acknowledges almost immediately he's made a mistake, but he can't get out of it. But the British can't really strike at him in Spain until he's been mortally wounded in Russia. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Wellington can't successfully break out of Portugal until the French army in Spain, until about 1813, has been drained of men and resources to shore up the Eastern Front. It's never going to do it on its own, and the British know that too. Russia, I think, is a pretty crucial turning point in that a very good army is destroyed. It's virtually destroyed. The figures are staggering. I mean, I've just been writing about this for Volume 3 of that biography, and I still can't get over the loss, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of really good troops.
What sort of numbers are we talking about?
Oh, for goodness sake, we're talking about... It's staggering. I mean, we're talking about something like 400,000 men.
Jeez.
350 to 400,000 men. It's mind-blowing. And most of them not killed in combat, but killed on long marches. The army's already wrecked by the time it gets to Moscow, and of course it's won major victories along the way. It's already in a bad state, and above all, it was the loss of horses, the loss of cavalry. So he raises another army, a very formidable army, quickly after that. He deals not a definitive blow, but he gives the Allies a good thrashing at Dresden. Big losses on both sides. I mean, the guys like Metternich, Tsar Alexander, Castlereagh, the British foreign minister, they have to work really hard to keep that coalition together after Dresden. They do. And then a few months later, when he makes a vital mistake, he asks for an armistice from the Allies and he gets it. He's trying to buy time to build up his army. But what that gives them time to do, for the first time, the Russians use that summer to mobilize. They have a huge army, very experienced troops, but their infrastructure is terrible. Their road network is non-existent. It takes them ages to mobilize. But that summer gives them the time. And then when they finally face each other down at Leipzig at the Battle of the Nations, that's the crunch.
And of course, 1814, a significant year in his life. He's forced to abdicate. Off to the island of Elba he goes. He gets out, though, escapes in February 1815, takes control of France once again. The Allies form that 7th coalition, and of course, it all comes to a head at Waterloo, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was no way he could have won that campaign. He could have won Waterloo. Wellington's right. It was the nearest damn thing you've ever seen in your life. But as I said at the beginning, even if he'd won at Waterloo, there was still this huge Russian army already sitting in France that he could not possibly have defeated. Why he does it, a lot of historians, I think with good reason, say, well, it was criminally irresponsible. This is the actions of a guy who can only think about his ego. Who can only think about grabbing power. It's not quite as simple. They put him on Elba, and they've treated him very, very well on Elba. He's worried that they don't trust him. He's worried that particularly the Prussians and the Austrians are going to renege on the deal because they regard him as a danger, and they're already talking about sending him to St. Helena. The British are quite keen on it too. The guy who's his best friend is the Tsar, who said, no, don't provoke him. But he's also getting reports from France that particularly the army is not happy with the restored Bourbons. That, if he comes back, he'll get support. And it wasn't so much he got mass support when he came back to France. Everybody was scared. Everybody sat tight. Yeah? He got tremendous support from within the army, from within the civil service. Certain regions of France, which had always been very pro-revolutionary, don't like the Bourbons back, will support Napoleon. But most people just sat there and held their breath. It's not massive support. you can see when he lands in France, he sticks to the back roads for a long time until he's absolutely sure it's safe to come into the open. But then, again, the army he has to mobilise for Waterloo is a shadow of the old army. You know, young conscripts. There are a few veterans in it, obviously, but he hasn't got the cavalry he used to have, the supplies, the musketry, all that's dried up. You know, it's amazing that he did as well as he did that day.
Which shows his tactical genius. And of course, at the very end, off to St Helena he goes. The Brits say, well, we've had enough of him. Lightning, we don't want it to strike 3 times. So off to the South Atlantic. And of course, he lives out the last 6 years there, dies at the age of 51.
Yeah, worn out. It's awfully hard to know with medical history. We're always very skeptical of it. But we think there was hereditary stomach cancer in the family. His dad died of something like that. He had an uncle who died of something like that. He and his sisters all developed similar symptoms. They all died roughly the same age. And that's been playing on him for years. For years and years, aged him prematurely. But on St. Helena, his health really declines. There are all sorts of nutty conspiracy theories, that do the rounds, that the Foreign Office, had lead put in the wallpaper to poison him in the house or something. All wallpaper has lead in it. But I think that if you're looking for a nasty conspiracy, it's that in his first years on St. Helena, he was on a fairly pleasant part of the island, nice climate, and they deliberately moved him to a house called Longwood up in the hills, which is known for its nasty, rotten weather, and his health suddenly declines. It's not much of a life. There's not much to record. As my friend and my compadre Phil Dwyer, your compatriot actually, an Australian, said recently about St. Helena, he spent most of his military genius organising campaigns against the rats and the mice, which weren't very successful. But while he's there, he dictates 4 sets of memoirs to 4 different people who followed him. And the first one appears in 1818, and obviously it's a sensation. Everybody's already been talking about him like he was dead in 1816, and then suddenly, I'm not dead. I'm back from the dead. It's life after death. And those memoirs come out over the next 4 years, and they are an incredible sensation across Europe, an incredible sensation. And this, again, Waterloo has prepared the ground for that. This is a legendary going down, a legendary defeat. And, only a sort of a heroic person, the feeling at the time goes, would try and pull this off. And it doesn't work, and he becomes the tragic hero, and that's exactly how he couches the memoirs.
And even to this day, has many, many reminders of his life, particularly in Paris. You even go to restaurants like Prokop down there and on the left bank, and there's one of his hats sitting in the window all the time. People reminded still of Napoleon Bonaparte. Look, we could talk for another 3 hours. Timer has beaten us, unfortunately. But look, I was just sitting fascinated listening to the life and times of Napoleon, thanks to you, Michael. I really do appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure entirely, Michael.
No, thank you. My pleasure. Professor Michael Browse, as I said, Oxford University Professor of Western European History and author of Napoleon, Soldier of Destiny.
Do you want to take the hassle out of payroll? With Reckon, you can pay employees quicker than this ad. Process the amount on your phone, mark it for approval, and done. Plus, Reckon makes JobKeeper payments a breeze. Do it all in just a few taps. Designed with small business in mind, the Reckon payroll app is a simple way to manage pay runs, single-touch payroll reports, and JobKeeper payments, all from your mobile. For payroll that's made easy, visit Reckon today at reckon.com.
When your time comes, years from now, what kind of funeral do you want? If your answer is simple and affordable, there's something you can do about it now. A prepaid funeral from Simplicity Funerals means your family is financially protected, and it will all be done the way you want it. We arrange funerals that are caring and simply affordable. To start making your plan, call us on 1300 556 222 or find us at simplicityfunerals.com.au.
Aussie Services. We're here 24/7 on 91992377. Plumbing and electrical work should always be left to the professionals. So let Aussie Services sort you out. You'll get a free plumbing and electrical safety check valued at $400 and $50 off your first service. Plus a 10% discount for pensioners and seniors. For service you can trust, go to aussieservices.com.au or give us a call on 91992377.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
You need firewood? Better Burn has Sydney's best firewood at the lowest prices. Heating, camping, or cooking with wood. Visit Better Burn, Walgrove Road, Horsley Park, open 7 days. Better wood, better service, and of course Better Burn. That's BETTA, Better Burn.
Kia Stinger. Fine-tuned for Australian conditions. With a powerful V6 twin-turbo engine, thrilling rear-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic, plus Australia's best 7-year warranty. It took 7 years to create and 4.9 seconds to understand why. Book a test drive today to find out why the Kia Stinger is the perfect balance of power and refinement.
Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass.
Don't miss the Palmer's Glass mid-year shower screen sale on now. Great deals on quality frameless shower screens. You can't go past palmersglass.com.au.
Palmer's Glass, Palmer's Glass, you can't go past Palmer's Glass.
You're listening to Australia Overnight on 2GB 873.
Yeah, good having you with us. 131873. It's Friday morning. Bit of history there on a Friday morning. Why not? The life and times of a certain Napoleon Bonaparte. I was just talking to Dale there during the break about some of the great Napoleon-type movies over the years as well. Of course, there was that movie Waterloo from whenever it was. Di Lorenzo, I think, was the director of it, and it had Christopher Plummer playing the Duke of Wellington. And all the camera shots, because Christopher was a short little fellow, seemed to be never capturing his boots. It was always sort of upwards. He must have been standing on phone books or something, which was probably a bit of a unique invention for the time of the Battle of Waterloo. But and there was Rod Steiger playing Napoleon himself. I mean, Rod Steiger was a terrific actor. I thought his best role was when he played the police constable in The Heat of the Night, which was a great movie. Great soundtrack too to that. But anyway, there's some good movies over the years, no doubt about it. Interesting story today in the Courier Mail. Now, this is obviously going to be a national story, but the Queensland paper has it. And it's something we've been sort of warning that could come to fruition. Farmers, it says, staring down a shocking crunch point which could see crops worth millions of dollars just left to rot on the vine. And this, of course, even with more Aussies in dole queues than the past 20 years. It seems that a lot of people are unwilling to move vast distances to do tough work, to do farm work. Now, there are jobs going, and there certainly will be, because seasonal workers available to pick crops and work the farm are quickly disappearing. A lot of these seasonal workers used to be people from Europe and from Asia and the islands and things like this. They'd come in on certain visas, and sometimes they'd work their passage. You know, they'd do some work on a farm here, and then they go further north for a different season. And as they went, they'd be tourists and spend their money. And it was good for the Australian economy, and it also helped farms, the agriculturalists, keep the cost of production down because they didn't have to be paid a king's ransom. And so when the produce got to the shelves, we were paying, you know, fair, reasonable prices for top quality, global quality produce. But seasonal workers now in short supply and disappearing. And at the same time, there's a massive labour force of Aussies looking for work. But the Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud, said that farmers in regional areas can't compete with job seeker payments in the cities. And because they can't convince people to move, say, 1,200 kilometres away for some short-term work. Now, remember, and I'll speak to Ian Henschke from National Seniors about this shortly, but Job Seeker has been doubled from what it used to be when it used to be called New Start. It used to be the dole before that. And so it's now a reasonably generous package. And so, there's a lot of young people, fit, unemployed, not much to do, who would be ideal to work in agricultural areas. And, of course, some of them aren't 1,200 kilometres away. I mean, some of them may be 200 kilometres away from the city. But they're not going because they say, well, hang on, I'll just stay on Job Seeker and get, what is it, 1,500 a fortnight or whatever it is, a month or whatever it is at the moment. Yeah, it's reasonable money. And I don't have to bend my back at all. And so, the people in the bush pleading for workers, desperate for workers, can't offer that sort of money. And so we've got a dilemma. Now, the number of backpackers in the country who normally, as I said, fill the jobs that locals don't want has halved. It was 180,000. It's down now to 90,000 and continuing to fall, despite the government now offering incentives to these people to stay and work specifically in agriculture, health and aged care. So some have stayed, but obviously plenty have gone home. You can understand that. The LNP Senator Susan McDonald said that in some cases the problem wasn't an unskilled workforce, but an unwilling workforce. And the first crunch point, according to the Courier Mail, was in April, but it was avoided when the government extended the time for holiday worker, Pacific Island worker and seasonal worker visas if they agreed to work in the essential industries of agriculture, health and aged care. But as the number of visa holders in Australia dwindles, and it continues to, and international borders remain shut, we heard yesterday they'll be shut probably till the end of the year at least, as the paper says, a second danger zone is now looming for the next picking season, obviously September right through to March. So you get spring and summer. And Littleproud, the agriculture minister, said that farmers needed to advertise for Australian workers before they hired someone on a visa. That's the rule. But the distant location of the work, needing to move every few weeks or months, made it hard for many people. As the minister said, our preference is for an Australian to work, particularly if they're unemployed. But in essence, the challenge that farmers have, they can't wait for someone to know if they want to do the work. The apple, it might stay in the shop for a while, but when it's on the tree, it's not in some crisper or some refrigerated truck. It's there on the tree. And at a certain point, it's got to be picked. Otherwise, it spoils, becomes parrot food. Or they plough it back into the ground. So this is going to be a dilemma. As Littleproud said, the labour market is there to source it. It's the fluidity and moving it around the country to address the needs we have to deal with. So in other words, there's plenty of people, obviously now. We'll look with Gary Morgan later at just how many people are or underemployed. Heaps of them. The question is, how do we get those people predominantly in the cities, because that's where most people live these days. How do we get them connected to the bush where there is honest, gainful employment waiting? It may not, it may not pay the rent in Point Piper. It's not huge money and it is hard work, but nonetheless it is work. It's honest work, it's good work, and it's work that in the past a lot of Australians would do. Now it's a different story. Senator McDonald said that it was difficult to convince people to move geographically to fill job vacancies, saying, and I quote, "We need to map out what overseas seasonal workforce remains in the country, what the requirements are in different parts of the country, and when they're needed throughout the years." Now, the Sunshine Coast-based Penata Farms said that they'd had enough workers for now, but they were already beginning to see the drop-off. And they said, look, we'd love to hire Australians, but the reality is none of them are out here to get a job. It doesn't make sense that people don't have a job, and we could have fruit rotting in the field. Well, that's it. So, look, the government's obviously flummoxed. You might have a better idea than they about how you can overcome this obvious dilemma. We've got workers. It's just that they either don't want to or can't or find it difficult to go to where these jobs are. So how do we entice them? What do? You might have an idea. 131873, the open line number. And look, whilst talking about jobs and what, I mean, the key is going to be opening up borders, and we'll look at this again after 5 at some point. But yeah, as we said yesterday, you've got to open up the state borders. I think people understand that the international border, Fortress Australia, as it were, will remain in situ. There are clearly hotspots still around the world, and you just can't trust the system to be able to cope with a massive influx from abroad. So I think most people say, look, unless you've got people coming back for compassionate reasons or something like that, you keep the borders shut. But internally, domestically, the borders have to open, and you're not going to get an economic recovery without it. And I mean, equally, looking at that agriculture work story, I mean, let's say, for example, people in New South Wales say, oh, well, look, sod it, I'll go up to Queensland and pick strawberries. Well, it's going to be very difficult to do that at the moment if you've got to, once you cross the border, stay 14 days somewhere before you even get to then go onto the farm. So, look, how that's going to work with border closures, well, it'll just make it all that much more difficult. Another hurdle in the way to the finish line. So that's all got to go. But there are still some very significant questions, I think, around these Black Lives Matter protests and just how many of the protesters either had COVID-19 or, in fact, caught it but have not been tested. Now, I say this because yesterday Victoria recorded 18 new cases, including 12 thanks to community transmission. Now, that's much higher than has been the case for a long, long time. And one of those cases of community transmission was in a person who attended Melbourne's Black Lives Matter rally back on the 6th of this month. Now, the health minister in Victoria said it was unlikely that person was infectious during the protest, but we don't really know. They may not have been, but they might have got it from someone who was at the protest. You just don't know. And see, this is the point. You know, we keep hearing the official statistics. So in New South Wales, for example, record number of coronavirus tests performed yesterday. And out of the so many thousand tests, almost 17,500 tests, only 2 returned positive cases, and those 2 individuals were in hotel quarantine, so that's okay. Travellers coming back in the hotel. But, you know, you've got a population of 7 million in New South Wales. You've got a population of about 6 million or 5 point something in Victoria. And if you're testing so many thousand a day, how many millions are you not testing? And, of course, you know, this testing is, in essence, a voluntary exercise for people just out there in Communityville. If you're feeling a bit crook, they say, oh, look, you know, go along to the community centre or the park or whatever it is where the testing centre is, you know, the site is all set up, and go and have the swab. But if you don't go and do it, you might be at home with the sniffles and you might have the damn virus. But it's incumbent upon these people to get tested. Now, it's not an incredible logical leap, is it, to say if a whole bunch of people that attended protests actually had coronavirus symptoms, that they would be unlikely to go and get tested because they believe in the cause of the protest. They probably believe that more protests, more mass protests are needed. But of course, if it's proved that a bunch of them ended up with COVID-19, the likelihood of any protests being given the go-ahead down the track would be about 0 Buckleys and none. So politically, they might say, well, I'll just sort of self-isolate at home and I'll ride it out. But are they? Oh, yeah. I would say this is the point. You don't really know how many people have this wretched thing because not everyone is being tested every day, and that's an impossible undertaking. So we are simply flying semi-blind. The numbers we are getting are positive. They're good. But it is a very small fraction of the overall population. And just how many people are out there at the moment, protest attenders or not, who may well be asymptomatic with COVID-19, but still wandering around. And of course, they're not being tested, so no one will ever know. Well, that's a big question mark. And I suppose this is one of the things that is certainly holding the Queensland and West Australian governments and others back from fully opening up their borders. They understand all of this, but equally, I mean, how much longer can the economy just, you know, splutter along like a jalopy whilst we see people just fall off all the time into the gutter of unemployment? Clearly, we just have to get the domestic economy back up and running. And, yeah, not wanting to repeat myself, but I mean, we've got to always remember and remind ourselves what the purpose of, quote-unquote, flattening the curve actually was. It wasn't so that we could eliminate the virus. That's what New Zealand attempted to do, and by and large they've been successful. The purpose of flattening the curve was to buy time. Not time to eliminate the virus, but time to get the medical fraternity and the medical facilities up and running, get the ICU beds ready, get the ventilators on standby, get the medicos trained up, all the rest of it, get the gloves, get the masks, get the sanitizer, so that when we open up and new cases naturally present, we expected them, that the hospital system in each jurisdiction would be able to cope. It wouldn't be overwhelmed. We wouldn't have some kind of third world calamity. Now, the medical system is prepared. The ICU beds are in situ. The ventilators have arrived. The gloves, the masks, the sanitizer are here. The doctors are trained. And yet the domestic economy still, in many ways, remains shut. So why the change of policy? And is it now worth the cost? Having been sold one line of argument on the need for shutdown, and people went along with it because it makes a lot of sense. We're now being, almost blindly spun into a second interpretation, which is very different from the initial narrative, and which is now seriously costing, I would argue needlessly, the economy and jobs. And so this is where the dilemma now sits. You may wish to comment on all of that. Happy to hear from you. 131 873 the number.
The Chris Smith Show.
This worldwide attempt to rewrite history, the cancelling of culture that has seen movies banned. Anything you do banned becomes valuable, right? So there'll be more downloads and streaming and people paying to see Gone with the Wind than ever before in the history of movies.
The Chris Smith Show.
What a stupid attempt that was to wipe something out from our consciousness. Where does the crazy ideology end?
The Chris Smith Show. Weekend mornings from 9 on 2GB 873.
Choose Toyota and the value stays with you. Like Kluger 2-wheel drive GX. Drive away from $41,990. Plus get a $1,500 finance deposit bonus. Contact your local Toyota dealer. Oh, what a feeling. Toyota. Drive away offer ends June 30. Deposit bonus available to approved private bronze and silver guests only. Subject to normal lending criteria. Offer ends July 31. One offer per finance contract. This offer is not available in conjunction with any other offer. Terms, conditions, fees and charges apply.
You don't have to sell or downsize your home. There's so many ways you could use your Heartland Reverse Mortgage, like freeing up cash for home improvements. You don't have to make repayments until you either leave or sell your home. If you're over 60, you could convert a part of your home's equity into cash with a Heartland Reverse Mortgage, improving the lives of everyday Aussies. Call 1300 889 338.
Lending criteria, T's and C's and fees apply. Credit provided by ASF Custodians Proprietary Limited. Australian Credit Licence 386781.
Under the cover of COVID-19, the New South Wales Government wants to privatise our buses. That will put your local bus service and your local bus driver's job at risk. Don't let that happen. Join the campaign at ourtransport.org.au. Authorised by David Babineau, RTBU, Tram and Bus Division, Sydney.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
As we end the financial year, Rural Aid is asking for your support. Through bushfires, flood, drought and COVID-19, Aussie farmers still put food on our tables. Now it's our time to help. Make a tax-deductible donation at ruralaid.org.au.
Wineselectors.com.au has Australian wine that's worth staying home for. Wine Selectors bring you Australian wine in all its diversity from our finest growing regions, curated by our expert tasting panel and delivered to your door. Select delicious Australian red, white or mixed wines by the case, or choose a plan for even more value-packed offers and varieties. Wineselectors.com.au, from the cellar door to your door. Shipping Australia-wide. Winter catalogue out now.
Are you buying firewood? Better Burn Firewood has a weighbridge, so you're only paying for what you pick up. Grab a bootload or fill the trailer. It's that easy. Better Burn. Walgrove Road, Horsley Park. They're open 7 days. Better wood, better service, better burn. BETTA, Better Burn.
You're listening to Australia Overnight on 2GB 873.
I suppose you want a weather update, do you? All right, fair enough, if you insist. Sydney today, a top of 19. Areas of fog, mainly in the west in the early morning. A mostly sunny afternoon with some light winds. It'll get wet increasingly across the weekend. Saturday night, the rain should come. Well, there's sort of a 40% chance of that. And then anyway, Sunday, a 90% chance. The Bureau says a very high chance of showers in Sydney, most likely, though, in the morning. Now, Brisbane today, top of 22 and partly cloudy, a 30% chance of a shower. That will increase to about a 60% chance, mostly in the afternoon and evening on Saturday, and about a 50-50 for some rain on Sunday. Canberra, 13 the top today and partly cloudy. It should be dry, bit of fog and frost in the morning, although a near certainty of rain tomorrow, and a pretty high chance of those continuing through to Sunday morning. 131873. Peter's a prolific emailer, Peter at Paddington. Good morning, Peter. I'll just give you, I can't read you all the emails because I think Peter's already sent about 8 through this morning, but I'll just share with you one or two and see what you make of these. Peter says in one email, my shower screen cost $10. Thank you, Peter. He reminds us that the winter solstice is 4 days away in another email. Then in email number 3, Peter asks, but who produces money? Okay, you might want to answer that. A bit further down in the email trail, Peter then tells me that he says, and I quote here, trained my beautiful little dogs to eat pigeons, followed up by a follow-up email to that. Haven't seen a pigeon now around the house for 2 years with my dogs. And then we get on to fish in email number 8. Peter says, the only news, some big brim out of Sydney Harbour recently, some nice flathead, tourists have gone, backpackers have stayed. So that's the thoughts of Chairman Peter this morning. Covered a fair bit of ground, including the fact his shower screen cost him a tenner. There you go. Thank you, Peter. I'll be able to sleep easy when I get home tonight knowing that. I was petrified you paid more than 12. 131873. Of course, we are remembering Vera Lynn this morning. This has to be one of the most beautiful of all her songs.
That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I'm perfectly willing to swear that when you turned and smiled at me, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, poor puzzled moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? The whole darn world seemed upside down. The streets of town were paved with stars. It was such a romantic affair. And as we kissed and said goodnight, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Came stealing up, all gold and blue, to interrupt our rendezvous. I still remember how you smiled and said, was that a dream, or was it true? step was just as light as the tap dancing feet of a stair, and like an echo far away, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I know 'cause I was there that night in Berkeley Square.
Iconic sounds, certainly of the 1940s, with Vera Lynn there. A nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. Beautiful, beautiful song. And, of course, a whole bunch of London landmarks mentioned in the song as well, which will bring back memories for people from their holidays over in the old Dart. Now, before we hit the news, it's almost 3 o'clock. There's a story on the front page of the Herald today saying that there's a near $7 billion shortfall in funding for more than 20 new and expanded road projects promised by the New South Wales government. And this is all thanks to internal advice that's been identified to the New South Wales government. Roads and Maritime Services warned of 26 unfunded commitments totalling $6.7 billion, including the cost of duplicating the Great Western Highway between Katoomba and Lithgow, in a document completed in May last year. Now, I know a little bit about that particular project, and there is this obsession at the moment, particularly going through Blackheath. There's a bit of a scrap going on up there between two different camps. One group of people want to hold the government to account with their pre-election promise, which is to build a tunnel underneath the old town of Blackheath, so as not to disturb the heritage and the rest of it. And that way you can duplicate the highway, and the trucks that take produce from the Western Plains can more easily get to Sydney. There is another group of people that, for some in government, it has to be said, for budget reasons, want to duplicate the highway but take out an entire, about 100 and something houses to do it, which seems a ridiculous proposal. And then there's the greenie set up there that say we don't want any new road because we don't want cars or trucks because we don't like them. We don't want anything that would encourage more of them. And so there's a scrap on there, so good luck solving that one by tomorrow. But $6.7 billion in total, apparently, of unfunded commitments. I mean, it's one thing to promise something, but it's another thing to actually have the money to deliver it. So that might be a bit of a headache this morning for the New South Wales government. Stay with us. Plenty more coming up after the news. That's coming now.
Kia Stinger. Fine-tuned for Australian conditions. With a powerful V6 twin-turbo engine, thrilling rear-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic, plus Australia's best 7-year warranty. It took 7 years to create and 4.9 seconds to understand why. Book a test drive today to find out why the Kia Stinger is the perfect balance of power and refinement.
Nothing compares to the pristine landscapes and unique wildlife of Antarctica, and you can experience it in truly all-inclusive ultra-luxury on board Scenic Eclipse, the world's first discovery yacht. Ben Fordham Live is giving you the chance to win a 19-night luxury voyage for 2 adults to Antarctica, South Georgia, and the Falkland Islands, valued at $68,000. Your chance to win starts Monday. Visit scenic.com.au/2GB and listen to Ben Fordham Live.
Austral Clothes Hoists is the only hoist company manufacturing 100% of its products in Australia. Hang out with a true blue Aussie company. Purchase Austral Clothes Hoists from your hardware store or click where to buy at australclotheshoists.com.au.
Of hundreds of end of financial year offers, only ours has a BMW. Enjoy savings equal to the GST across the BMW range. But hurry, appointments are limited. Book with your participating dealer. Offer ends Sunday, June 21. T's and C's and exclusions apply.
At Spotlight, a window's what you make it. Save a massive 50% off the entire range of ready-to-hang and made-to-measure faux wood Venetian blinds. So you can warm it, shade it, and keep it cool for less. Exclusions apply. At Spotlight, it's what you make it.
You can't always be there for your elderly mum or dad when they're feeling unwell or have a fall. But
But there is another option. With a MePax personal alarm, you have peace of mind that your loved one has guaranteed help, day or night. They'll be able to speak to a real person at the MePax Response Centre, based in Australia within 2 minutes. Anytime, day or night, at home or out and about. You're safer with MePax. Find out more at mepax.com.au.
Only Simplicity Funerals offers the Simplicity Guarantee. It's our promise to you that we'll always better the lowest quote around. And if you're not completely satisfied with our service, we'll refund our fees. It's that simple. For a funeral that's simply respectful and simply affordable, call us anytime on 1300 556 222 or visit simplicityfunerals.com.au. Terms and conditions apply.
A starter rod for the kids or the most advanced reel on the market, Shimano has fishing gear, accessories and apparel to suit every angler and budget. For your nearest dealer, see shimanofish.com.au. Shimano, proud partner of Widewater Sports.
2GB. People you know. Opinions that matter. News you can trust. Sydney's 2GB.